Hello and welcome to Roots of Sustainable Impact. I'm your host, Eloisa Marquez Gonzalez. And today I have a fantastic guest, Eric Majors. Did I say it right?
You did. Gracias, Eloisa.
De nada. I tried a lot. I practiced. So Eric has spent a lot of time, many years, inspiring young people to connect STEM with sustainability, an area that is near and dear my heart. So thank you, Eric, for coming to the show.
And thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. And I'm so glad we met. We met through 1% for the Planet.
Yeah.
And thank you for reaching out. That was a very unexpected and pleasant surprise. So thank you.
Yeah. And we're also neighbors up there in the Northeast. So
that is correct. Yeah. That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Eric, for folks that have not met you yet, could you give a quick introduction about yourself, please?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Eric. I was a teacher for 20 years. I taught many things. My last kind of 7 years, was teaching sustainability. So designed a program where students take on a project in their school to make their school greener from the inside out. And we trained over 650 people around the world to do this program. It's called Green Scholars. It's actually a program we're redeveloping since COVID. We've been redeveloping it. If someone was to tell me how long I thought it would take, I would have said a year and a half, 2 years. Well, since 2020, we've been trying to redevelop this program. It is quite a program. So I wear a couple hats. I am the executive director and founder of Seaside Sustainability. We are an organization up in the Northeast, up just north of Boston and Gloucester, and we do a bunch of things. One of our programs is Green Scholars. We do work on marine debris, legislation, climate action, blue technology. Let's do a whole bunch of things, which we'll talk about more. And the other hat I wear is I am the executive director and founder of the National STEM Honor Society. Science, technology, engineering, and math. It's similar to any other honor society, but it's really STEM focused. And we are from pre-K through college. Our tagline is from pre-K to career. And we are international, and we are exploding. So it's really exciting. So that's me in a nutshell.
That is wonderful. Thank you for the introduction. And today we're going to talk about exactly that, bridging STEM and sustainability.
Great.
So why don't we start there on how you see that connection between STEM and sustainability, and how you're doing that bridge with your two organizations.
Yeah. So a great question, and the reason actually I launched National STEM Honor Society, opposed to National Sustainability Honor Society or some other thing like that. One is the population, and who would be interested in, or who would want a chapter of Sustainability Honor Society. So we did an evaluation of public schools in the United States, and at that stage back in 2017, 8 years ago now, 1% to 2% of public high schools in the United States was doing anything systematically in sustainability. So we kicked around, like, what's the best way to get sustainability into schools? And we came up with STEM. Well, actually, we came up with STEAM. Science, technology, and STEM plus arts, the A for arts. And so then it was really about, okay, we had STEM or we had STEAM, and then we'll go back a couple steps of how we actually what the link is. And so we arrived on STEM, and how we arrived on STEM is we looked at internationally, and internationally there is a massive push for STEM. And that is engaging students at a very young age, and we are at pre-K in STEM, and keeping them engaged throughout their school year. Now, the connection, going back to your question, the connection between STEM and sustainability, for some might be obvious, for others not so much. But we are in a crisis, and whether you believe in science or not, we're in a crisis, whether that's an energy crisis, whether that's an environmental crisis. We are in a crisis around our Earth. And, for every year, again, whether you believe in the science or not, but every year, our temperatures are beating the previous year. Our CO2 in our environment is coming from fossil fuels, and we have to do a better job. So what we have done thus far is a drop in the bucket, and there's lots of discussion, lots of oh, more than a discussion, disagreements on the best way to do it, whether it's through renewables, whether it's through nuclear, whether it's through some technology we haven't figured out. But
Mhm.
so there is a very easy, a very basic, on a very basic level, STEM and sustainability. And our way to a sustainable future is in a large part through innovation through STEM, and that is in our country, and that is in all countries around the world. It is not just going to be enough for us individually to think globally, think globally, act locally. It's not enough for us to just live a sustainable lifestyle ourselves. Very difficult, and of course, in our culture in the United States. So we have to get through some major innovation, and then so STEM again, huge connection between STEM and sustainability.
Yes, and totally agree that it has to be more than just the lifestyle, and it's part of education too. That educating kids about the lifestyle, the more sustainable lifestyle. So,
Yes,
and
exactly.
and how has been the engagement from schools? How receptive have they been into this STEM and sustainability? Um,
Well, so we are not overtly trying to get our schools to be more sustainable through the National STEM Honor Society. Interestingly enough, we just had our third project-based learning showcase. It's called a PBL showcase for high schools around the country. We had, I forget how many submissions we had, 65 submissions. I believe we had 35, yeah, somewhere around 65 submissions. And a large majority of them, probably around 85% of them, were about sustainable solutions. And it was really incredible. So it's not even that we have to try very hard to push sustainability in STEM. It's just such a great natural connection. Um, but to go back to your question, schools, I mean, I don't see a lot has changed since 2017 when we did that evaluation in public high schools across the country in the United States to now. I think there is definitely more awareness of a crisis and of
mhm.
sustainability and our needs for sustainability. But changing schools, changing education in the United States. Uh, I don't have experience in changing schools in other countries, but changing schools in the United States is like turning around um, an aircraft carrier. I mean, it just takes so long. So for any kind of like systematic changes in states or in the country at large, for that to happen is going to be a very, very, very long time. I mean, there are some states like, take Maryland for example. I don't know where they are now, but take Maryland. Many years ago, they instituted a graduation requirement, and it was an environmental kind of a graduation requirement. And some states have these. It's a very, very, very small thing that we can be doing. I mean, it seems like we could be doing a lot more in education around so many different things, and education is definitely one of them.
Correct.
I'm sorry, sustainability is definitely one of them. So yeah,
Yes.
and STEM,
Yes.
but yeah,
Both definitely need a push. Need additional engagement. And
definitely.
so you mentioned that about 80% of the projects were sustainable. or within sustainability. Is there something that inspired those students to go that route, or what? I guess what inspired them to
Well, I
to
yeah.
tackle that?
Well, I think actually, if I were to put them into two different categories, they'd be medical and STEM for the most part.
Mm.
I think for that population of students that are doing these projects, either for themselves in a small group at their school, however that works, I think it is they're concentrating um, on solutions to problems, and there are so many solutions, or there are so many problems that require solutions in the environment, that it's just such a fraught environment to be able to do that kind of work, and the medical and the medical. So I think that's why. I think it's just such a I'm not going to say easy, but it's such a need, and there's so many problems that one could choose from that has unique solutions that students can engage with. So
It is interesting that you mentioned that, because I do speaking engagements with some schools whenever I can. I go and speak to elementary schools and high schoolers. Actually, I'm doing one for the university here next week, and but they usually, the conversations about what your career has been and how do you select a degree. And
mm,
my standpoint has always been figure out what is a problem out there that you're passionate about solving, and then you can
that's
see
good.
how you use your skills and your abilities and what I call the superpowers to actually solve it.
That's great. I love that. That's really cool.
So it goes hand in hand with what you're saying. They seem to be
Yeah,
focusing on that problem and not so much um, constraining themselves on what do I know or what is
yeah.
that I'm called in the case of a degree, but more of what I want to solve.
Yeah, and if I were to, it's interesting you say that, because for a few years there, I didn't know what I wanted to do until I got into teaching, and I wouldn't say teaching was the thing that really lit my fire, but it was about sustainability, and it was about in training students and getting sustainable solutions, and greening schools from the inside out. And if I were to ask myself many years prior, and go through that exercise that you go through with your when you talk to schools, that would have helped me kind of align to my career path quicker. Although, hey, we all took our path, but that's pretty cool that you do that. So I appreciate that. It's
Yeah,
great.
thank you, thank you, and exactly. It sometimes we just need to follow our own path, and we get there. Um,
Yeah.
so could you tell us a little bit more about how did you actually get there? A little bit more about your story on and what triggered you to open sustainable seaside sustainability. I flipped them.
And National Sub Society, how that kind of can how we landed on that.
Yes.
Well, so my mom, I'll go way back. Well, way back in my life, so not that many years. I'm not that old, but I'll go back to 1970. My mom was pregnant with me for the first ever Earth Day in 1970, and she was actually at Earth Day event in Chicago, Illinois, and so that's where it started. So my mom and dad, my family, we were, kind of they were a little bit older than the normal than hippies, but kind of at that the older age of hippies, and so I learned to embrace the environment. I learned
Mm.
to tread lightly onto the environment, be a steward of the environment, to not overconsume. Lots of time all throughout the year, not the dead of winter up in the Northeast because it used to be really, really, really cold. But to spend time in the environment. So lots of camping, canoeing, and hiking, and backpacking, and all of that. And so that started with me as a very young, very young. Then I went to a couple schools up in Maine where I was continued to be immersed in the environment. And so throughout my younger years and my formative years and through high school and college, really got more and more steeped into the environment and became a steward of the environment. And then in my career, I became a teacher. Really wasn't doing things in the environment until kind of like after 2000, and then somewhere in there, I started this program about sustainability. It was actually kind of about it was about in the school. It was about recycling, and well, we all know about recycling, but started so it was kind of supposed to be a recycling kind of club or a waste reduction club, and then it turned into this program called Green Scholars, and then so left teaching in 2017, started Seaside, and then shortly after that started building a National STEM Honor Society. So and yeah, and so we have, and both of those organizations has an incredibly unique internship program. So we have about 100 interns at any given time, somewhere around 250 a year for each of those organizations. Interns come from uh, you know, hundreds and hundreds of schools, high schools and colleges from around the world, and so it's incredibly diverse. It's super exciting. It's great. So I kind of stay in that education mode,
Mhm.
which is wonderful. So yeah, and then here we are.
That's great. Thank you for that journey to the past
Yeah.
and how you got here. And so as you're talking, this whole idea of the emerging technologies also came to mind of how things have been changing. Like we know, recycling is not being recycled. So, and there's so many new emerging technologies. Uh, so, how are those influencing the teachings on the STEM, if at all? Are you seeing your interns embracing or being curious about those new technologies? What is your thinking around the the role that those technologies play moving forward
Yeah.
on our educating our youth?
Good question, Luis. So what the technologies that we are teaching about in high school, middle school, high school, college today are it is advancing. We are in this like
Mhm.
this time of amazing, incredible, rapid advancement. And so the technology that we are working on today, and not saying in all cases, but in lots of areas in industries, that's it's like irrelevant and in 4 or 5 years down the road. So we are trying to educate a population, I would say internationally, at least in the STEM areas, we're trying to educate a population in technologies that we really don't even know what they're going to look like in 5, 7, 10 years. We have no idea. In another 20 years, they'll be completely different. 15 years, completely different. So definitely a challenge. So I think teaching project-based learning and engineering and all of these things becomes incredibly important. Um, I would say the advancement, one of the critical ones that impacts us every day at Seaside and NSTEM is just AI. And
Mhm.
just what has happened in the last year and a half in AI is incredible. And how people are using AI, how some industries or you know sectors of business and organizations are sprinting to it, and some are resisting it in any way they can, or trying to figure out like how to harness this whole thing and how to use it in the best way possible, and how to in education, I mean, so difficult to manage. Are we actually assessing students' knowledge, or are we assessing their ability to use AI to the best of their ability? And so, and I think it's a concern. It's a concern. I mean, in National STEM Honor Society and Seaside, we use AI all the time. But when we have an applicant that is applying for one of our internship jobs, we have a very strict policy that we don't want them to use AI in their application because we want to get to know them. We need to know that what they're able to do, how they think, not how they're able to manipulate AI into the what to produce the best possible answer that we need. But so it's a really tricky because but then when they get here, well, we want them to do that because we want the best answer. So it's a little bit like how we figure it out.
Mhm.
But in the STEM industry, we are, I mean, I think there was just a young man. I forget his name. Um, not only do I forget his name, I forget where he's from. But he was a high school kid, young man, and I just read about this the other day, and he just got this huge award because he designed this AI. He was asked to his problem he was looking for is to map a few stars or a few constellations or something, and so he made this algorithm using AI, and lo and behold, it spit out something like 250,000 of them, and so or 2.5 million. All I remember it was like this astronomical number. And so just AI is just exploding is what we're in what we're seeing and National STEM on a Seaside for the good or the for good or better or worse, but for in industry all over the world. So it's an exciting time, and it's definitely an interesting time.
It is a very interesting time. And on that vein, like, what are the skill sets that you see critical for these young students to acquire, especially with tools like AI and other tools? What are the skills that you feel they have to have?
I think the skill continues to be that top skill that we continue looking for is critical thinking, is just that ability to be able to be a critical thinker about inputs and outputs, and I think if you can maintain that, then I think you will be able to be a productive member of that, at least that STEM world. I think COVID in many ways drove our students internationally to, I mean, it was very challenging for all students and for families and for education around the world. And, amazing we even came out of that as good as we did in some cases. But I think COVID had some serious detriment to our education. And part of that detriment, I think, is as a large population of students that appear to have maybe lost the ability for critical thinking, and or they have just suppressed it and stopped using it in the way that they're looking, and then with AI, I mean, amazing things that they can produce with AI. So I guess I'll critical thinking, I think, is probably number one. Is that quality that we need to keep seeing, and we need to keep fostering in schools around the world.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, last week, no, this week, I forget what they were living in. I actually, I just gave a talk about the use of AI in small businesses, and that was that it resonates so much because I said it as well there, where you cannot just take whatever AI gives you. You have to have that
Right.
ability to understand
Oh,
your
definitely,
information, um, and
definitely.
figure out what is it that is giving you, if it looks correct or not. So critical,
Critical thinking.
yes, yes.
Critical
You're
thinking.
not outsourcing critical thinking. You're just
Exactly.
you're making the analysis faster. So
Exactly. Definitely.
So Eric, a lot of my listeners are part of organizations, and companies working on sustainability and clean tech. What are ways that you can see that for organizations to engage with students or with schools to promote the use of STEM and sustainability? Are there any tips or suggestions you might have for organizations?
Well, I mean, we do it and we seem to do it pretty well. I mean, I would say an internship program, a robust internship program is great. Um, in a lot of cases, it takes a lot of energy to get it established and get interns, and have that attraction and train them and keep them engaged. And you always have that attrition. So you have a lot of organizations that try to, they do a little bit in it, but I think that would be number one. Um, hmm, I don't. I guess I say that was number one. I don't know if I have a two and a three or a four. I think out of all the things that we could probably do, that would probably be a really good one. Trying to get them into the fold of what they're doing. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. So, Eric, we're getting to the end of our conversation. So I would love to know, what are the parts that you enjoy the most about your work?
Well, I think the parts I love the most about my work, I would actually say, we're going to go right back to interns. I love working with students. My heart is in education, so I love giving them real world stuff to do. I mean, we are not having kids come in and having them go get coffee and have them go get a dry clean and things like that. At Seaside Sustainability, we're at this wild ratio. We're 50 for every 50 applicants. We're at one hire. So for every one hire, we have 50 applicants actually, and I think that's on its way up again. Generally in the summertime, it increases. So we're probably in a big way. So definitely working with interns, giving them real responsibilities, seeing them just glow, seeing them come in as newbies and continue to develop and grow. Our interns here for both organizations, they come in for 4 or 5 months, 15 hours a week, and a lot of them stay. And we've had interns that have been with us now honestly going on 4 years. So we've had and they've changed departments. They've definitely increased in responsibility, come as an interns, become a department manager, a fellow, and then become advisors and stuff like that. So, we've definitely be able to, we have this ability to make a difference in people and their lives, and that we know that they're doing the same in their lives. So it's like this, tell someone, help someone. So yeah, I think that's one of the most that's one of my favorite parts about working here. I think the other one in Seaside is actually making a sustainable difference. Working with technologies, we get to work with robots, we get to work with devices, we get to do different kind of programs and projects about marine science and education. We get to make differences in cities and towns on legislation. We do a lot of education around sustainability and marine debris, all the way to through climate action. So I think making a strong difference is really really important to me, and not necessarily having a legacy, but really just kind of making that difference in a small way in cities and towns across the country and around the world, but also in schools and in people's lives. So I think it's really important.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you for all the work that you do. And I thank you from myself and also from the world and society, because we need all the things that you're doing in both organizations and beyond. So I appreciate very much that. And I appreciate very much our conversation today.
Me too. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And if there's ways that if people want to connect with you or how they want to get involved, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Well, come on to our website, seasidesustainability.org, and STEM, N as in Nancy, STEM.org. Both have ways to mentor. If you want to be a mentor or advisor for students, both have ways to be volunteers. A little bit easier at Seaside than NSTEM to be a volunteer, but both have ways. Always looking for great people to do great things. And so you can connect with us at Seaside. We have a very up in the North Shore. We have a great volunteer program. Lots of people doing lots of great things in the environment, doing testing of water, testing of soil and sand, and we are potentially right on the verge of starting a horseshoe crabbing tagging program this summer. So lots of ways to get involved, and so those are great. And send us a message, and we can get on a call.
Wonderful, and we'll have all your contact information on the show notes and on LinkedIn.
Great.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much again for coming to the show. Appreciate all the work you're doing. Keep it up, and
thank you, and thank you for everything that you do too, because your organization is great. What you do is really cool. So, and that's how we got to know each other. So, and I hope we get to hang out sometime as we're neighbors.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And thank you. And dear listener, thank you for listening to this episode. And if you enjoy the conversation, please rate it. And also, we'll see you here next week. Thank you very much.